Hello, my name is Tim Gerhardt. I'm the Technical Service Manager here at LabStrong. And today we're going to be working on the NCL Labs LabStrong SST oven. Today we're going to replace the control board. What you're going to need is a cordless drill, needle nose pliers, screwdriver, Phillips screwdriver, and some gloves. Now to remove the control panel, first thing you want to do is disconnect the power. And we've got this flipped around, so this is the back of the unit. We're going to remove the top, the back, and this bottom, which is all one piece. It's all one U piece here. And to do that, there's 5 screws on the top. There's 2 on each side. Now there's 4 screws here on each side, but you only remove the 2 that are closest to the back. And then there's 4 on the bottom, which are actually in the center of the feet. So when you take those screws off, the feet are going to come with it. We're now looking at the top of the unit. To remove the cover, which is this U-shaped cover, we're going to have to get this vent port tube pushed down and away from this ground. That tube will push through there. Now we can pull up on the whole panel and set that aside. Your heating element connections right here, so your upper and your lower. Then you've got your thermocouple connection, thermocouple sensor. This is your RTD sensor. This is your cable connection that comes in from your display. This is your power source that comes from your power supply board. Okay, now to remove the control board, first thing we're going to do is disconnect all of our electrical connections. I would recommend taking a picture of this so that you can refer back to it when you go to put the new control board on and reconnect all your wires to this board. So what we're going to remove first is our power supply. So there's just simply a tab here. You pull back on this and it slides back out of the way. This is our connector for our front display. That just slides back. Our RTD sensor has a little tab right here. You push down on the tab and pull out on the whole sensor. That comes apart. Our thermocouple, you're going to need a small little jeweler screwdriver. There's 2 flathead connectors right here. Now to get the connectors off your heating elements, it's easier just to use needle nose pliers. You don't want to pull back on the wires themselves because you'll pull right out of the connector. Okay, now to get the 4 screws that hold the control board in place, there's screws here that have the heads on this side, but there's a nut on the back side. And it isn't attached to this back plate, so you're going to have to be able to reach back there to grab a hold of that nut as you're taking this screw off. It's easier sometimes if you can actually take one of these sides off and then just loosen these 4 screws. You don't have to take them all the way off. That will allow you to get to the 4 screws and the 4 nuts. Sometimes it's easier just to put on a glove because there's wool insulation back behind that plate. It just makes it a little easier for you. You want to ground yourself to the unit so that when you're handling the board, you don't have any static that actually can destroy the board. To get to the nuts, you're going to have to go to the lower side underneath here. Put your hand up and you can feel the nut back here. Then you can take and remove that screw and then just slide the nut down. You're going to want to kind of hold the board at the same time here because there's spacers on the back side here. Now that we've removed the control board, we're going to put our new control board in place. It's just ground strapped in. We're going to put each of the 4 bolts into each corner of the board. Now there's spacers that go in place. And what we want to do is go ahead and put one of these in first. You want to take one of the nuts and you want to take it on one hand, go to the back side, slide it up to where you can see the opening in the nut. Then you go ahead and put your screw in place. You want to get it so that the nut's in place, but you don't want to tighten it up tight because you're going to have to put your other 4 spacers and bolts in. Now that we have them all four in place, you can tighten those up. DC wire back up underneath the board. Now it goes back in place. Now this can only go on one direction. There's a slide here, and there's a clip here, so that this clip goes over that and holds it in place. So that's the only one direction it could go. Your RTD can only go in one direction. This is that little tab that holds it in place. So once you push it in, you hear that click. Pull back just a little bit, you know that it's in place. This has a connection that is actually set up to only go in one direction as well. This is from your front display. That slides up till it stops. Now we've got our power that comes in for the elements. That only goes on one direction. These clips right here, they slide in, and it has these little ears there that won't allow it to go only in one direction. So it slides up, and it's in place. Your heating elements, your upper, slide that back in place, nice and tight, all the way to the end. We've got our heating elements for our top, our bottom, and our power for our heating elements. Last thing is our thermocouple. The red was the one on top, the yellow was the one on the bottom. It just slides into the side here, and once it's in place, two screws, set screws, hold it in place. Now we're connected, control board's connected back. We're gonna go ahead and tighten up these 4 screws that we loosened. And we're gonna go, but first before we do that, we wanna go ahead and put these 2 screws on the side, and then we'll tighten these 4. Well, after that, once these are tight, then we're gonna go ahead and put our cover back on, which consists of the top, the back, and the bottom. We're gonna flip it on its face. We're gonna put the feet on first, but we're not gonna tighten them all up. We're just gonna get them on there so they're a little loose, because we still need to be able to move the actual outer case so that you can get the rest of the screws on the back and the 5 on the top. Now we got to go ahead, before we attach the top, the vent tube, we need to go ahead and work that through the grommet, which is usually pretty long, so it's got a little extra tube that you can actually work that up through there. And sometimes you can take a needle nose to grab a hold just a little bit of it, kind of tug a little bit, not a lot, because then you'll rip a piece off of there. Just enough to have that come through. The back side that goes through the chamber is already through the chamber, so we're just going to go ahead and reattach. Now that we have the control board in place, the panel's on, we can power this up. It's ready to go. If you have any other questions, please feel free to give me a call at LabStrong. If you have any other need for tutorials, how-to videos, we've got available on LabStrong.com.